as you know, he died on Friday while covering the World Cup in Qatar. Grant was a CBS Sports contributor and a longtime sports journalist. He wrote for Sports Illustrated for more than 2 decades and was one of America's most well-known soccer analysts. Now, that's a part you probably knew. What you may not know is that he was also a loving husband, married to CBS News medical contributor Dr. Celine Gounder for 21 years. And Celine joins us in the studio. Celine, you've been to the studio many, many times. We're always glad to see you to talk about COVID. And this is so difficult to have you sitting here to talk about this. We are all so sorry, so sorry. I'm wondering what you think when you see the tributes coming in about Grant.
Oh, it's so touching.
Does it bring you comfort?
It does. To know that he was so loved by so many people, it makes me feel a little bit less alone. Feels like, you know, it's like a warm hug when you really need it.
Yes,
in a moment like
when
this.
you really need it. How did you find out that he had passed away? I woke up to the news and I was stunned. You certainly found out before the rest of us. How did you find out?
I was wrapping up one of my last work calls of the day on Friday, and I started to see messages from Grant's friend and colleague, Gabriel Marcotti's, another soccer journalist. And I saw messages coming in on Twitter, on my texts, on my email, and I realized, well, there's clearly something wrong. And so I got off the call and I called Gabriel. And he told me he had seen what had happened at the stadium, that Grant had collapsed, that they had tried to do CPR for some 20 minutes and then took him off to the hospital. And 2 of his other colleagues were following in a car behind the ambulance. And that's what I knew at that point. And so then I started to try to track down somebody at the hospital to tell me what had happened. I kept on asking, did he have a pulse?
So you were asking doctor questions?
Well, I knew that was a sign. If he had a pulse when he left the stadium, that would have been a good sign, but no one would answer the question. And so to me, I was scared. I was scared.
What have you been told was the cause of death? Because you know that Grant's brother came on and a lot of people were rattled by it, myself included, when he thought that maybe there was foul play here, that it didn't make sense to him because Grant was very healthy. Can you tell us what was the exact cause of death?
Yeah, so he had an autopsy done here in New York by the New York City Medical Examiner's Office, and it showed that he had an aortic aneurysm that ruptured.
Which means what? Okay.
So aorta, that's the big blood vessel that comes out of your heart, sort of the trunk of all the blood vessels. And an aneurysm is a ballooning of the blood vessel wall, and so it's weak. And it's just one of these things that had been likely brewing for years, and for whatever reason, it happened at this point in time.
And how did you handle the theories that there might have been foul play? How did you process that?
I think in these kinds of moments, you really have to show grace to how people grieve. And my family, my husband's family, our family, has had a lot of loss in the last few years. My brother-in-law was there when my father passed away. He was there to see the chest compressions and the shocks. He was there with my mom. Shortly thereafter, his mom passed away, then his dad.
So that was grief talking.
Yeah, I think so. You know, there's just been a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you know, after he died, I started reading the articles that he had written. I started looking at some of the tape pieces that he had done. He was clearly at the top of his field. Were you a soccer fan?
Not really. I'm not much of a sports fan. I absorbed, you know, obviously some by osmosis over the years with Grant, and, you know, would get into the World Cup a little bit with him, but, you know, that's not what connected us, really.
And so when you see the outpouring from people that knew him very well, some of the tributes that are coming in, I know that you said it's like getting a warm hug when you need it most. How are you getting through this? I saw your mom and your sisters are here. I'm so glad to see that. How are you getting through this, Celine?
Yeah, the support of family and friends. So I had 2 friends come over right after I heard. Another friend came over later on Friday night. She stayed with me. She slept over 2 nights through Sunday, and she was the one actually fielding all of the text messages, the emails, the calls, so that I wouldn't have to do too much. But everybody's just been so supportive.
But you know what they say about Grant, that because of Grant, he really brought soccer to life in this country, that he was so passionate about this sport. Why did he love it so?
I think for him, soccer was more than just a sport. It was this thing that connected people around the world. There's so much about the culture, the politics of sport. of soccer, to him it was a way of really understanding people and where they were coming from.
Yeah, you've been posting pictures with you and Grant, and one of them, I didn't know if it was a joke or not, but the caption says, "This is the day Celine proposed to me." Did you propose to him?
I did.
You did.
I did.
So Celine, you were forward when you were doing it. Yeah.
Well, I had just gotten into med school. Had decided I was going to head back west to where my parents lived. It was my state med school, and I felt like if I'm going to ask Grant to follow me, I should be the one proposing.
And I'm assuming he said yes.
He said yes.
And then it was reported that you and your family went to identify the body. Was that important to you? Because other family members could have done that for you, true?
Yeah, but I just really needed to see, because honestly, this has been so surreal. I had, even now, having seen the body, it's really hard to believe this is real. But I just needed that.
Yeah, I actually understand that. I go back and forth about how I would handle something, what I want to see, but I actually understand why that desire was so important to you. How do you want us all to remember him today? Because the tributes about him are amazing.
I want people to remember him as this kind, generous person who was really dedicated to social justice. I think that's another aspect of soccer that was really important to him, that, promoting the women's game, the recent statements he had made about LGBT rights, that was Grant. That was Grant.
Well, something tells me that's how he will be remembered, because he was so beloved and so highly respected. And please know we're all thinking about you today and all just really willing you through this. Thank you for coming. You said you wanted to come because you wanted to share Grant's story. Because believe me, we would have never asked you, but we're so glad that you reached out and said you wanted to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.